A good afternoon and welcome back in Studio 5, where we would now like to engage in a lab debate on rethinking quality vocational education and training to attract investment. Indeed, there's promising potential for vocational education and training to seize investment and employment opportunities for the benefit of the local population. Where investors and employers find the required skills locally, sustainable social and economic development can be boosted. So it's about time to rethink vocational education and training. Can it rise to the challenge and collaborate with investors and employers in an agile way through innovative training strategies and future-oriented skills development programs? That is exactly what our panel members will debate here this afternoon. The lab debate is organized by VET Toolbox, which is a partnership of leading European development agencies to promote demand-driven and inclusive vocational education and training. And the session will be moderated by Bartelijne van den Bogert, who is head of the VET Toolbox at Enable, the Belgian development agency. So may I cordially invite Bartelijne and her panel members to please take the stage.
A very good afternoon, or should I say beginning of the evening. Welcome to this lab debate organized by the VET Toolbox. We have two of our panelists here with us today. And we have hopefully one other panelist with us online. Omar Sadek, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
Okay, and now I have to remember to put the headset on and off each time. My apologies. Let's see. Omar, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, fine. Thank you. How are you?
Very good. Happy to have this session finally. We've been looking forward to it. Does everybody have their sound on? Yes? Perfect. Wonderful. Okay. As Philippe was just saying, the title of our lab debate today is a bit intriguing. We hope it intrigued you a little, right? Rethinking quality VET to attract investment. And why we wanted to intrigue you and pull you out here is because I think all of us here, you all know this topic of vocational education and training. You've heard about public-private partnership. You're well aware that we need to collaborate more between the trainings and the labor market needs. But we want to take it one step further. We want to make sure that during at least these 45 minutes and far beyond, we take it one step further because, yes, of course, yes, the PPPs, we want the PPPs, we'll be continuing the PPPs, but we want to take it further still, right? And that step is the opportunity-driven VET. Because what we are saying is having VET just as a result, having skilled people is wonderful, but it's not enough. We will not say that is enough anymore. We will not be happy with VET that delivers people who are not employed afterwards. Whether it's employment, wage employment, whether it's self-employment, we want to make sure that every trainee gets into employment after their training, right? And that's why we are proposing the following. Now, if we want to make sure that each of our trainees, after their VET course, ends up in employment or self-employment, that requires that there are economic opportunities. To have economic opportunities, we need investments. To have investments, we need an investment climate that's really attractive. And one of the aspects of having such an attractive investment climate is, of course, covering HR needs and the skills needs that possible investors, employers would have. So this is what we're focusing on, because we're going then from those specific concrete skills needs back to our training centers. And we're saying training centers, we want to make sure this collaboration is not just informed by the private sector. We want to go a step further. We want to make sure there's concrete commitment on concrete employment opportunities, self-employment opportunities, and we want to be training in function of that it's tailor-made, and we want all of them out to employment, right? Now, if we're getting transition figures where we have about half of our trainees into employment, we're often already happy. No, that needs to go up quite a lot. And that is today's topic. We're calling it opportunity-driven VET. And we're saying that that's where the win-win is, right? We want these employers to be really enthusiastic, these investors to be really enthusiastic to come into the countries so we can reap the local benefits. We want them to be able to hire locally, and there is our win-win right in there. And if you're curious to know exactly who we want to talk with about this topic, there's of course a party that cannot be missing, and that is obviously the private sector. So these are our speakers that we have invited today. We have, and I will just let them introduce themselves. I think that's a good idea, right? Let me start at the far end of the line. Simone, may I pass you the floor for just a few brief words about yourself and why you think you've been invited here? Why do you think you make a great panelist?
Thank you so much. I think I also take this off. So my name is Simone Andersson. I work as a Chief Commercial Officer for a company called We Center in Kenya. We deal with electronic waste management. We also have an NGO called Computers for Schools Kenya since 20 years back. So we've been in the business for a long time. We see that skills are definitely lacking when it comes to circular electronics and safe e-waste management in the country and the continent. So we are thrilled to have entered a partnership with Enable, GIZ, and other donors in this VET Toolbox program. And that's why I'm here, representing the private industry and someone who really needs skills out there.
Super, thanks so much. And Paul, may I pass you the floor next?
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Paul Umukunzi, and I come from the Republic of Rwanda. There I work as Director General of Rwanda TVET Board, which is a public organization in charge of coordination of all activities related to skills development and employment promotion. So our main role is to develop training programs responding to the needs of the labor market in all economic sectors, and also to establish technical and vocational schools to deliver these programs. So as of now, we have managed to establish 451 TVET schools across the country, and we work together with the private sector to organize short-term training programs targeting either their employees to upskill them and ensure improvement of their productivity and service delivery, or also short-term training targeting out-of-school youth to give them the required technical competencies and give them more chances to secure a job. So doing so, we are contributing to the national economic transformation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Omar, may I also invite you to introduce yourself, please?
My name is Omar Sadek. I am heading the Department of Competence Center for Skills Development at the Delegation of the German Industry and Commerce in Nigeria. We are working mainly on the dual TVET system, as we're trying to implement as many elements as possible of the German vocational education system in Nigeria. Basically, we're working on a dual approach where we have a combination of theory and practice to enable the labor in the local markets and to upgrade their human capital We work with a lot of African and European companies and organizations, and also a lot with the public sector in Nigeria, and also a strong focus on German companies.
Many thanks. And I think it's clear to you all why we invited exactly these panelists with their different takes on the issue, right? But they're not the only ones who can contribute, and they're not the only ones who I hope will be contributing. Each and every one of you is kindly invited to also contribute, and that is for once. Usually, you know, I used to be a teacher back in the day, and you usually ask people to put their smartphones away. I'm actually asking you to take the smartphones out, right? And we're asking you, and we will project a QR code that you will be able to use throughout the session, where you can put in you can answer some poll questions, but you can also, if you prefer to type, or you're a bit shy, sometimes that's okay, you can put in your questions through the app, right? And we also have a little warm-up question there. And that's the question that will be the first one we're asking our panelists as well. So, voila, starting right here, right now. What do you guys consider to be investors' biggest concerns when investing, right? And specifically, we're talking, VET Toolbox works mostly in sub-Saharan Africa. Where do you think lie their biggest concerns? And you can just type your word there, because it's a word cloud thing, and it will pop up. And if you like somebody else's suggestion, you can like their suggestion instead. So feel free to type. What do you think are the greatest concerns for investors to come to sub-Saharan Africa to invest, right? Voila, there we go. We're launched there. And dear Omar, in the meantime, I would like to ask you this question as well. What do you, from your perspective, see as the largest concerns for potential investors to come into sub-Saharan Africa?
Well, when we talk about sub-Saharan Africa, we need to be a little bit careful, because this is a very diverse environment. Sub-Saharan Africa is basically most of Africa without the northern countries. So we are here talking about 46 countries, 1.1 billion people, more than 2,000 different languages, and even more than 3,000 tribes. So this is a diversity that is commonly unknown to most people who are foreign to Africa. In these countries, you have very different parameters. You do have countries that do have relative stability and rely on tourism. For instance, you have countries where, like in Kenya or Tanzania, where you do have a big part of the business there is in the tourism industry. But you also do have countries that are riddled by conflict, and actually because of their natural resources, for instance, like in Congo, or not only natural resources, also ethnic conflicts and tribal conflicts that are happening there, and are focusing on different industries, like the mining industry, for instance. As for the concerns of the investors, one thing one could say is that the first point is that the lack of information about sub-Saharan Africa. One must also say that in sub-Saharan Africa, it is not only countries where you don't have opportunities. You also do have a lot of countries with big markets and great opportunities. For instance, the two biggest African economies are in sub-Saharan Africa, which is Nigeria and South Africa. Of course, another topic is the perception of corruption and the lack of transparency that leaves investors facing high uncertainty. So the unstable environment causes uncertainty, and this uncertainty causes trust issues. In addition to that, you do have cultural barriers and sometimes also different business cultures. So, yes, these are some of the factors I can say right off the bat.
Thanks so much. And I think probably if we have another look at our poll, these are probably some aspects that came on as well, right? Do we have the poll? The word cloud? Yeah, exactly. I think quite a few of these you might recognize. And I think I like the way that Omar was saying the perception of corruption. Because let's be completely immediately clear here. These are challenges that are global challenges. Huh? This is something that we recognize very well on this side of the globe as well. So I'm looking now specifically at one of these that I see pop a few times. That's, of course, the topic of our lab debate. And I'm passing the floor to you, Simone. Because one of the challenges for investors is definitely being scared you will not find the right human resources, right? Often now you are required to hire locally, which I think is a wonderful thing. You probably even want to hire locally, just like that, even out of principle. But can you find the right skilled people locally?
Depending on which industry you're in. Oh gosh, it's echoing. But definitely, yeah, it can be a problem. And that is why we're here today, to make sure that we can provide skilled personnel on site, but also fast track the education to get specific skills for specific industries. That's what I'm seeing. And of course that is a fear when investing, if you can't find that. Also, when it says insufficient legal the implications of policy framework and also enforcement of the policies I see is a big challenge, which is relevant and was mentioned also there. So, along with the skills, yeah.
Do you mention that with a link between the HR needs and the legal framework, or the reinforcement of the legal framework, or was it two separate topics?
From the point of view now, I see it from two separate, but surely they can be intertwined as well.
Yeah. Okay, thanks so much. Paul, then brings me back to you. The topics that were listed there, one of which being indeed specific HR needs and not being able to find those, might be a reason not to take that step as an investor. I would like to ask you two things at the same time. On the one hand, do you see a transition in VET where expectations have risen? I think back in the day when I started my career, your focus as a teacher was just getting them skilled. That's where it stopped as a VET institution. I don't think that's still the case. I think expectations have risen. And at the same time, I wanted to ask your response as well. How do you feel you're very well aware of employers' needs? What can be? How do you go about really getting the details of what they want? So there's two parts to my question. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, I would start by the comments of why investors are not really investing in sub-Saharan Africa. So one of the reasons, as it was said by other speakers, is the lack of a qualified workforce. But to me, that is not the one of the issues. It's one of the main concerns, but also the legal reforms, the legal frameworks, as they said. In most of sub-Saharan countries, they have legal frameworks which are really not ensuring availability of a conducive environment for doing business. That is very critical. And the other concern that we can really not overlook at here is the lack of infrastructure in sub-Saharan countries. When you talk about infrastructure, there are some infrastructures which are really necessary and essential for the success of doing business in any country. Other factors have been mentioned by other speakers. Now, for the VET, the expectations have changed. It's not only a matter of skilling and having graduates who are skilled. Now the target is to make them really secure employment, decent jobs for the youth especially. So, and to achieve this, the VET has to be structured in such a way that there is no mismatch between the supply and demand of skills. So the VET has to be structured in such a way that the programs we are offering, they are aligned to the employment opportunities and to the needs of the investors and employers. So, and another key element, when we look at VET, the main purpose would not be only to develop technical skills only. So it is very essential to add on soft skills like entrepreneurship, like critical thinking, innovation and creativity, and also financial and digital literacy. So to make sure that we are not only creating qualified job seekers, but we are also producing qualified job creators, to mean graduates who are able or who are empowered enough to be able to create their own businesses, their own small and medium-sized enterprises. So to do so, we have to make sure that we are adding on to the technical competencies. We are also adding on these soft skills. So now, for the matter of understanding the needs of the private sector or the needs of the investors, for us, like in Rwanda, what we are trying to do is, first of all, to let the private sector play a key role in, first of all, the definition of the required skills on the labor market, and to give also strategic guidance on all matters related to skills development and employment promotion. So to be able to do this, it is very essential to organize the private sector into sub-sector or sector skills councils or professional bodies or trade unions, which are platforms through which both the public and the private sector jointly provide strategic guidance on all matters related to skills development. So, and there is another thing that we are doing in Rwanda, which has been also very successful. So for us, because as of now, there are many investors coming over to Rwanda because of a sort of a conducive environment for doing business. So, and these investors, when they come, the first concern they face, what is similar to all other sub-Saharan African countries, is the lack of qualified workforce. So, and to address this in Rwanda, we came up with what we called a national strategy for skills development and employment promotion, through which we partner with the new investors, and they tell us how many of our youth they intend to employ once they start their business in Rwanda, and they tell us what kind of skills gaps they have. So, and what we do as a government, we organize intensive training programs to make sure that in the shortest time possible, we upgrade the skills of these young people they want to employ to the level of satisfaction of the employers, of the investors. So, and doing so, once they pass through these programs, they are directly employed. So, and doing this, we are at the same time creating decent jobs for our youth, but we are also supporting investors. So, and the strategy has been so effective and satisfactory in regards of our investors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. I think this is music to Omar and Simone's ears. I think they will now be. I'm quite curious. Actually, Omar. Investing in Rwanda, when you hear that the skills needs will be met in such a way, would that make you happy as an investor, you think? You have a perspective of many of...
especially the context of Rwanda is a very interesting story, as they have.
Is it really, only me who cannot hear Omar?
Yes.
We can hear him.
We can hear him. I
yes.
think I would need to change my headset.
Can you hear me?
If there's another one.
We hear you.
Okay, great. Ms. Van der Boga?
Thanks a lot.
It's getting on you.
Just a second.
Oh, shit. Okay, I don't know which one.
Just getting a new headphone.
I'm taking all. You always need a little technical hiccup, right? It was going far too smoothly up to now. Let's see if I can get you back, Omar. Yes.
Okay, great. You can hear me now?
Perfectly. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I would like to add to that I think, especially in the context of Rwanda, Rwanda is setting a great example as they have managed to go from difficult conflicts in the 90s to become one of the most feasible countries for business in Africa. If you look at the ease of doing business index for Rwanda, you will find them actually on the level with many countries in Europe. It's an exception you don't really find a lot in Africa. So there's one point one must say that Rwanda has really taken a big step forward and done a lot of reforms that have helped them to achieve such successes. But what I would also like to follow up on what Mr. Umukunzi has said is that absolutely the issue of soft skills is a very, very important one. This is also a feedback that we constantly get from the companies and organizations that we work with. One must keep in mind that, of course, because of the situation and poverty and lack of infrastructure in many sub-Saharan African countries, the ability for the youth to go and acquire basic skills from schools sometimes is hardly there or not there at all. So where do you begin with such people once they have reached the age of 18 or 19 and want to begin working in a company? You want to start skilling them, but where do you start? So the issue of soft skills actually is a very big issue, and it is very much needed. We're talking about communication skills. We're talking about the use of software, basic softwares that we all use in our day-to-day lives. So this is one thing that has been requested a lot by our partner companies and organizations.
Thanks so much, and I think we're now making a smooth transition to the next question, because I think, Simone, when you heard Paul describing a bit how they approach it, that definitely appealed to you. I was wondering what for you would qualify as quality vet. What are the key success factors for you in quality vet? And I know, for instance, the digital aspect and the soft skills that the colleagues were mentioning already is something you feel strongly about as well, right?
Very true. Because we see that, just like you described, Paul. Oh, sorry. Can't hear myself at the same time. So just like you described, Paul, once they have the skills, we still see that they start their own small businesses, but they have trouble scaling it up or getting efficiency because perhaps they just lack basic of Excel, for instance. So putting in numbers and getting their own statistics, being able to scale it just a little bit, that opportunity is not there. So of course, those kind of soft skills. And sometimes we talk about digital solutions as if we need something super high tech. And that is not often the way forward. Actually, it's those small ones, those small digital steps that is very well needed first. And then when you talk about, you mentioned it as sector skills, not platforms, you call it something else, but that is actually what we're now trying to establish in our project also, where we see so that we definitely connect all the different stakeholders in the value chain so we can communicate fast and efficiently on topic of what kind of skills, how is it now, if they get this certificate, is it actually sufficient for what they need when they go out, depending on if they're going to be working directly with us in what we do or connected as a partner when it comes to repair, refurbishment industry, when it comes to electronics. Yeah, so I really appreciate the way Rwanda is showing the way here also, so it's great.
Many thanks. Omar, if I ask you, what does quality vet look like from an employer perspective? What are the key elements you are thinking of?
Well, from our experience, something that is very important, of course, is the continually strict monitoring and evaluation of the training facilities and the trainers. You always want to make sure that the quality standards that you have set are upheld. Another thing that is crucial and that we are also working on, and this is not an easy one because this is not only up to the private sector, but it is the strong cooperation between the public and the private sector. You do need the public sector to upgrade your standard, your certifications, to upgrade the level of recognition, and to also here give more weight to the type of training that you are offering. Here, this is some of the things that we are trying to, I would not say copy, but rather adapt to the Nigerian market, for instance, from what we have learned from the German industry. Another thing that is also in our approach is a solid theoretical background. You have in many cases that people, they just train on certain machines, or they just get some instructions how to do certain things, but they do not know the theoretical framework, that what all this means. And giving this solid background of the training content is very important, because it gives a stronger purpose and it motivates also the trainees more. What is also something that never should be left out is the regular evaluation of the curriculum. One must be up to date about what are the newest techniques, what are the best innovations, if one wants to keep up with times and the competition. What would also something I can think of, this is sometimes presented, sometimes it is not, is to give the trainees also better long-term incentives. Because you do have the problem sometimes that people, they do start, but for some reason they do not complete the training. There must be something more attractive to them to stay and to continue. There must be more perspective in the training that they are receiving.
Many thanks, Omar. I think, Paul, that brings us back to you. I think Simona and Omar were sharing their wish list, and they look at you like you're now Father Christmas, giving... Is this wish list feasible? Let's be really honest and realistic. Is this wish list feasible?
Yeah, it is feasible, and it has to be feasible as well. So we have no choice. We have to make it. Because at the end, all we need is to have a vet system which is capable of producing a qualified workforce to make sure that we have the economic transformation of our countries going on, and the qualified workforce will play the main role in this. For us who are on the side of the training providers, we see quality vocational education and training in two ways. So one way is in what we put in and what we get as a result. So in terms of results, to know that the system you have is a qualitative one, you have to measure the graduates. Do they have employable skills? Are they qualified? So, and to measure this, you have to look at the employer's satisfaction level. So if the employer say the graduates who are producing, they are really qualified, they meet our expectation, that means that your system is a quality vocational education and training system. But on the other side, on the side of what we put in, for us, we see a quality vocational system in like 5 key pillars. The first one being the way the programs are designed. So are the programs really responding to the needs of the labor market? So are they addressing the identified skills gaps? So are they aligned to the employment opportunities which are available? So, and once the programs are good and well designed, then the second step is to see how do you deliver these programs. So do you have the required conducive learning environment? So, and for vocational and training, so you have to look at 2 aspects. So the infrastructure is one, but also the equipment you are using. because in most of the African countries, we are really still struggling to have modern equipment that you can use to build the capacity or to train our youth. Because you can see how fast technology is changing. So, and as technology changes, and if you want to have a qualified workforce, you need to cope with the changing technology in terms of the equipment you use to train your youth. So, and this is really a critical point. So, and in addition to that, there is another key pillar, which is the qualification of trainers, the teachers we use. So if they are not qualified, the whole training system will never be a qualitative one. So we need to have qualified and competent trainers, but you need also to keep on upgrading their capacity so that they can cope with the changing technology. So, and lastly, one of the also the critical element is to have strong mechanisms to ease the transition from school to work. So that graduates, once they graduate, they are really able to be absorbed on the labor markets. And to have this happen, so you need to have strong mechanisms to keep the graduates or the training providers, the schools, in close collaboration with the private sector. So you need to have mechanisms for good industrial attachment programs, international programs, or even business incubation centers as part of the training delivery. So that is what really in total makes a quality vocational and education training system. Thank you.
Thanks so much. So Omar and Simone, I was passing your wish list on to Paul, but I don't know what the tradition is, but I know in some countries Santa Claus also gets something back, and as well in Belgium actually we usually
offer some porridge.
Leave a pint of beer for Santa Claus. This is a good Belgian tradition, and chocolate and beer. What would employers be willing, if we hear what from the vet side they are willing to offer, how far can the commitment go? Because I'm particularly interested in finding out how far you could go into your commitment about employment. Paul was mentioning before they do when investors come in, they really ask how many people do you think you might be employing. But I did not hear that real commitment yet. Would employers be willing to really go the next step and say, okay, no, if we really can make this agreement and you deliver them along these skills that we jointly defined and jointly trained, we commit to hiring this amount. Simone, the floor is yours first.
Thank you. And now I also come from a sector where investments are both needed but a bit intricate. Waste management in countries where waste management is not very well developed. So promising to hire people in an industry which is a bit so-and-so is very special. But we do try, and we have our projections, we have our expansion plans. And of course, skilled personnel is one thing that is needed. Equipment is another one. So we also need investors for tech development within waste management. But given that all of that falls into place, yes, we could say that, okay, if we have this, we either can employ, or we know, since we are turning to a circular economy, that we will need partners knowing how to refurbish and repair and do all of that in between. So yeah, we can give some commitments, and of course we will also be very willing and happy to provide our expertise, show what kind of technology or equipment they need to utilize in the schools. We're not like BMW or something that can put the latest vehicle for them to operate on. But still, we can provide what we have and what we want them to be able to do. So, and I really like that, I would say, I mentioned circular economy. That is definitely one of the soft skills and broader perspective training that most people need today to understand the contexts of how are we going to create a sustainable production of anything. Yeah.
Thanks so much. Omar.
Well, that is a little bit of a tricky question, because what I know from our partners in the industry, there can be a conflict of interest at this point, because it takes a lot of investment and effort to find highly qualified people. And when they find them, there is the worry that they leave, because also in Nigeria, if you have people, for instance, who are really highly qualified, sometimes they might look for opportunities outside the country. So here, the employer doesn't have a problem to employ, but the employer also doesn't want to train people only for them to leave. So this one can be tricky, because at one point you need to train them. At the other point, how well do you train them? How do you ensure that they stay? So I will leave it to that. This is something that really is it's differently managed by every player in the industry. However, what I can say is that it really depends. It really depends on what they want. What is the future outlook for these employees?
Thanks so much, Omar. You touch upon something you were flagging before, right? The future perspectives that are coming along with the training and what is following after. Thanks so much. We're already looking towards the end of the session, but there is one super important thing that I really do want to raise, and I really want to get the take of each of you on this topic, namely decent work. Right? We don't want them to just be employed. No, we would want them to be as close to the ideal definition of decent work that we can realistically realize now, and we want to keep evolving towards better and better, closer to more decent work. So maybe Paul, if I may pass you the floor first. What from the vet perspective, how do you guys try and make these steps and your contribution to making sure these trainees get into decent employment?
Well, the first thing for us is to make sure that there is also these employment opportunities in the country for decent works. Because if there are no employment opportunities, you cannot talk about decent jobs for the youth. So, and what we do in Rwanda is to try to set up a conducive environment for doing business and to attract more and more investors into the country. So, and this has been so successful to the level that Rwanda became the fourth best investment destination in Africa over the last couple of years. And in terms of the ease of doing business, we are ranking second in Africa. So, and this has been, it has yielded results. So we are becoming many investors coming over to Rwanda, many big projects. I cannot list all of them right now, but the result that we are achieving is that most of our youth are getting employed. And for us on the training provision, we are now fighting to qualify them because most of the time investors who are coming over, new projects which are coming, they need to employ a lot of and a good number of Rwandan youth. So, and our job now is to make sure that they have the required skills. That's what we are fighting for. So, in doing so, we make sure that as they skill them, they get employed and they are into these new and decent jobs. And it has been really working well, and we are still fighting to make sure that more youth get employed. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. It's of course wonderful that you're getting any new investors on board. But is, if I may ask, is decent the level of decency of the work, if I can call it like that, is that on the table when you're trying to invest employers? I think Rwanda is asking to hire locally, is requiring to hire locally. Are there requirements with regard to decent work?
Yeah, of course, when you are talking about new investments and new projects coming over, it's not any kind of projects. So like I may give some examples. Like recently we have launched, in collaboration with the World Economic Forum, we have launched the Center of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, which is the first of its kind in Africa. So, and this is boosting skills development into emerging technology and new projects into emerging technology. So, and when you look at big projects like in renewable energy, we are extracting gas methane in Lake Kivu. So we have big projects like car manufacturers coming over to Rwanda. So we have the biotech in vaccine manufacturing coming over to Rwanda. So this is a wide range of decent jobs that we are creating for our jobs. So to mean that we are not creating any job, we are targeting decent job and good job for our youth.
Okay, that's really, really good to hear. Simone, if I can ask you the same question though, for, with regard to decent work.
Yeah. So I see the salary protection gear, of course insurance, health care, etc. Those systems to function, that would be a decent job for me. And of course we have laws stipulating what is needed. But as an employer, and when we talk about not having the brain drain that Omar was mentioning, of course you need, as an employer, to have some incentives and good systems in place to keep your employees also. But when we talk about decent job and trainings, I also want to bring up the informal sector that we always talk about, that we want to empower and strengthen. And that is what I also see, that we have a great opportunity when it comes to circular economy, because the informal sector with repair and refurbish industry is really in great need of certification so that they can become empowered in that and also get better safety for themselves when they work, which they can if they are better paid for their services. So we look forward to having the vet institutions being able to also to offer certifications for the informal sector players that we will define, not only for the new youth coming to the schools, but also target those. So that would be, for me, a decent employment in the second term, so to speak, not maybe by us, but yeah.
Thanks so much. I think you're putting in a great deal of nuance there, because it's a large challenge, right? But I think it's so important that each and every one of us is contributing to make the steps in the right direction in that regard. Dear friends of VET, if I may call you now, if once you've assisted a lab debate of the VET Toolbox, you're now officially part of the VET Toolbox family. We want to thank you very much. I would love to thank our speakers here today, Paul, Simona, and Omar, for contributing to this discussion. I think we touched upon about 5 zillion other topics we could endlessly discuss on, so we hope to have that opportunity again soon. And I would like to invite you as well. So here you have again, if you were wondering, the VET Toolbox, Philippe was mentioning, we have our partners here contributing. Please feel free to contact us and to follow us for other activities, because we love raising topics with regards to demand-driven, opportunity-driven and inclusive VET. So please follow us. And Omar, I will give you a very special honor. Just after I ask each, and those who still have their phones with them, I will invite you to maybe rate what your opinion is now on not this session necessarily, but the concept in itself. There's one more QR code for you to scan and one question to answer. Do you think if we can offer quality vets that really meets those HR needs for investors, can that help? Can that support investors or help them to bring them into the country? That's what we would like to know. So please add on if you what your opinion is, whether we can support through VET in that way. And Omar, I have 1 more minute for you to add something super inspirational, and which will all send us all out with a smile regarding the future of VET and decent work, to working together with employers and investors. The floor is yours, Omar. Thank you.
Thank you. That is a great honor. What I was thinking about, there is a great saying by Khalil Gibran. It says, between what is said and not meant, and what is meant but not said, most of the love is lost. So what I think, it can be also applied in a different way, where you can say what is thought and not done, and done and not thought, many opportunities are lost. Because specifically in this area, Ms. Anderson touched upon a very interesting point, for instance, e-waste. There is so much that can be done if we just participate from two sides. There are people working on these mountains trying to separate all the materials, risking their lives. And there are possibilities for us to do something here for the people, for the climate, and for the industry. It's a win-win situation for all. So what inspirational thing I would say to everyone is fulfill the need of the world and you will not be disappointed.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for participating, and hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
And thanks a lot to you, Bartelene, for this, I would say, very interesting and inspiring panel on the merits and limits of vocational education and training. We're going to take a last little break here of about 10 minutes, and then we're gearing up for our final session on e-learning tools for vulnerable communities. So let's reconnect in 10 minutes in Studio 5 and on Channel 5. See you soon.